Zed was used to feeling slightly out of step with his peers, as though he were the one guarding unusual secrets instead of his parents, but 3 months into this pilgrimage to his family's homeland, he was still plagued by moments that went way beyond a slight misalignment. It felt more like climbing stairs in the dark and believing there's one more step at the top than there really is. Every time he discovered some new detail about life in Falinnheim that everyone else took for granted, his stomach jolted like his foot was falling through empty air on that non-existent top step, the framework he'd trusted in suddenly missing. First, there was the whole calendar thing. Luckily, the teacher had frowned down a couple of students' suggestions that anyone who didn't have a grasp on 5 basic seasons might really belong in the younger class. But Zed couldn't shake the notion that he'd been labeled stupid right then and there, and would spend the rest of his life wearing it like an imaginary name tag on his shirt. With the new calendar came unfamiliar holidays. The autumn equinox celebration was pretty self-explanatory, but Halloween had been replaced with Samhain, with more focus on changing seasons and departed ancestors than goblin schools and the gaudy mounds of candy. But the thing that really took the biscuit was the dodos. He had heard them mentioned in his first week at the Resistance base, even before his parents joined the underground, literally, party. Not literally. In fact, even routine tasks were treated as deadly serious. But it was well into December, Providence, before he and Tuesday had their first duty assignment in the poultry wing. This was the earliest shift they'd ever been assigned, before the dining hall would even open for breakfast, so their father offered them some jerky from the security team's emergency rations in case they got hungry in the meantime. Zed triple-checked the pockets of his school uniform tunic before leaving his family's quarters to get to work. He was not about to get his first glimpse of a supposedly extinct creature in the flesh without a notebook and a pencil handy for a few sketches. Even Tuesday had to admit she was intrigued. Usually, she made a point of brushing off Falinnheim's eccentricities, partly because she didn't want to seem impressed by a place she'd had no choice about moving to, and partly because she wasn't ready to admit her living situation was anything more than a temporary inconvenience. But she couldn't turn down a front row seat to something no one back home would ever get to see. Not that she could tell anyone about it when she got back, of course. No one would believe her anyway. But she liked the idea of tucking the experience away to save her privately. It made her feel important. Boring people don't have mysterious secrets. They had to ask directions in the halls, since they were still learning their way around the sprawling maze of underground corridors, but managed to arrive at the gate to the poultry wing more or less on time. A dozen other people were already waiting for the shift supervisor to check them in and unlock the doors. Adults, mostly, though they did recognize 2 other kids from Professor Orpin's class. Celia, a tall and lanky 14-year-old, bounced her fingers absently through her straw-blonde curls as if she feared they might deflate if she didn't keep them properly aerated. She waited next to a man who could only be her father, same long reedy arms and square nose, but his yellow curls were cropped too short to tell if they required fluffing for proper maintenance. Farik was crouched in a corner, trying to squeeze in a few last sentences of the Children's Psychology Primer, before the supervisor made him stow his book away and begin work. At least, Zed was pretty sure that was his name. He was embarrassed to realize that 3 months into sharing a classroom, he still thought of the quiet 11-year-old as Book Kid.